Processing Principle, and Alteration of Malware Behavior by Close Observation. So as I say, I'm from Argentina. I am a researcher, a teacher, I'm a master's student. Well, Argentina is in South America, and I'm from Mendoza, which is in the west of Argentina. Well, I wanted to show you some pictures from where I am from, so that's it. I work in the ITIC Research Institute, which belongs to the National University of Cuyo, which is one of the biggest universities in the region. And well, I start with the presentation. So first, I will start with the motivation and the contribution. Next, I will talk a bit about the background and the Nomads Project. Then I will be talking about the HTTPS dataset we generated. Then about an analysis and conclusion to finally talk about the discussion, the conclusion and the future work. So the motivation of our work was that we wanted to study the influence of proxy interceptor in malware behavior, so for malware analysis. So our contribution are 3 points mostly. The first one is the creation of a network malware data set, and the goal was to capture network traffic that was using encrypted channels, meaning TLS, SSL, or port 443. So we proposed 2 scenarios. The first one with a proxy interception. We used MITM proxy, and the second scenario was without any interception at all. The second contribution of this work is the publication of the dataset. We share it on our blog and on Twitter. And the third one is the analysis of the malware capture behavior. Well, as background, I mean, I imagine that everyone have heard about TLS, which is a network protocol to encrypt information. That means that all the information between 2 points, between a source and a destination, when the channel is established, all the information passing through will be encrypted. On the other hand, we know that malware is evolving and is increasing, and this evolution makes malware even harder to detect because the behavior changes. And one of the evolution is that malware is using now HTTPS, SSL or TLS, and this makes them even harder to detect them. One example is the banking Trojans, or for example, CUs. So in this context, the Nomads Project was born, sorry. And this is a project between Cisco Systems CTA and the Technical University in Czech Republic in Prague, and in collaboration with the National University of Cuyo. And the goal of this project was to collect malware captures that was using encrypted channels. And it was a project to help Cisco system to study this kind of malware and to us to analyze the captures. So we generated a data set that now contains more than 150 malware captures, and they are all available online. If you want to access, you can do it. It contains different types of malware, meaning botnets, Trojans, hardware, any kind. In order to obtain a good quality malware data set, we first study the malware, meaning we have to check if the malware was using HTTPS. And then we kept the infection running the most of the time we could, for weeks or even months when it was possible. And this is our infrastructure. This is the lab infrastructure we use for this project. So we have a Linux host with 30 virtual machines, and we were using VirtualBox to virtualize them. And there is a web, in the first scenario, there is a web port redirection, and we are using the proxy, and then the traffic goes directly to the internet. We also have a honeypot, and we have a database with all the binaries that we are using for the malwares. So we copy the binaries to the server, and then we execute it in the virtual machines. In the second scenario, is almost the same as the first one, but we don't have any port redirection, so the traffic goes directly to the internet. The methodology we're following is has these 5 steps. So first, we have to find the malware. That was the hardest part. We used a lot SSL Blacklist, which is a website where all the malware that is using encrypted channel are reported. So once we find the MD5, we found it on VirusTurtle, and we download it. Then we copy all the binaries into our server in the database. Then we start the virtual machine, and we compute the start time. We execute the malware, and we compute the time of the infection. And then we monitor the machine. We were using cacti, and we were using TCP dump. And then we stop the machine after a while. Then we generate some output files. We generate a bro analysis. We generate some information files that you can access there. There is the link, an example of the link. And we share the information on our blog and on Twitter. So you can see in that link that is on blue, there is a number, 181. 188 is the number of the malware, an ID that we gave to each malware. It belongs to MD5. We can say, oh, SHA-1. So that will be the first capture using that malware. If we want to execute the malware a second time, we will put number 2 or number 3 and so on. So in order to analyze our malware captures, we use the pickup files and the MITM output files mostly. And we took into consideration first the IPs that were contacted by the malware, the ports that were contacted, and we also were checking if the communication was encrypted or not. This is one of the analyses of one of the captures. The name of the malware is Sword, and the ID is 188 for us. So as you can see in the first one, in figure 3, is that there is not a lot of traffic. You can see a peak on blue. Each color means a different kind of traffic. So blue light will be SSL, and there is a peak because the malware reached the server, the remote server. He established a command and control. He received the orders, and the malware kept the execution. There are some peaks because he tried to connect to different servers, but nothing more else was happening. However, in the second one, the malware couldn't reach the server. So he was trying to connect. So those peaks that you can see are the attempt of the connections. So the malware tried to connect to different servers using port 443 and using encrypted communication, and it was trying to connect through TCP through ports 80 and 88. So you can have the link to that malware sample if you want to check them. This is another example. The name of the malware is Voltrack, which is a Trojan. And the ID of the capture is 189. And as you can see, the behavior is pretty similar. We execute the malware in different times. And this was using a DG8. So he was trying to connect to different servers. The connection was successful in both cases. In the second one, there is not much traffic at the beginning because some servers were down. So that was the only difference. But in both cases, he could connect to the remote server. So here's a discussion. In some cases, malware could not connect to internet at all. They weren't able to communicate at all. This was because the malware was using a custom protocol. So with the midterm proxy interception, the proxy could not understand the protocol, and we were seeing this kind of message of bad request. And that didn't happen with the same malware without a mid-chain proxy interception. That was the difference. So when this happened, new behaviors appeared. The first one was that the malware tried to reconnect constantly to the remote server, let's say every minute. And that was why it was generating a lot of traffic. The second behavior we observed is that the malware was seeking other ways to connect by looking for different ports to the same IP, ports, for example, 80 or 88, and it tried to connect to different servers, different IPs. So that was the change of the behavior of the malware. So the conclusion is that some malware uses a custom protocol and on ports reserved for HTTPS and HTTP, meaning port 443, ports 80 and 88. And blocking this connection by the proxy, it generates new malware behaviors. So now we can say that malware behavior can change because of the interception proxy. So a proxy interception should be carefully considered when analyzing the malware behavior. So also, our data set is available. So if anyone can observe anything else, here you have the link to access. As a future work, we want to analyze more features. We want to make some reverse binaries. We would like to analyze the IPs the malware is connected to, the ports, because sometimes the ports change a lot. So we'd like to see in detail also the version of the protocol the malware is using. And also we'd like to implement an IoT lab for malware executing, for malware using HTTPS, because when I was looking for malware samples, there were a lot of samples for Android. Now we want to study the behavior as well. So thank you very much for listening. And if you want to contact me, we are looking for collaboration as well. So here's my email, my Twitter. So thank you very much.
If you have a question, don't hesitate.
Hi. Is it working? Yeah. Thank you for the very good, very nice talk. I was wondering whether you had to deal with sinkhole command and control servers in which you're unable to access them and you have to somewhat try to imitate them in order to record the malware on HTTPS.
Sorry, the second part. If I have to deal with
Yeah, I'll try to repeat my question. Did you have to deal with specific malware that their command and control servers were sinkholed so that you have to imitate them by using another server in order to record their HTTPS?
No. We're using actually, we want to use that proxy because we want, I'm sorry. Thank you. We wanted to use the proxy to analyze the packets in detail, but we didn't have that kind of problem actually. All the malware was executing well, and no, I didn't see anything of that. So, thank you.
Another question? Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Yes.